Hello and welcome. Amidst the politics around the coronavirus spread and the treatment, particularly in the national capital, the back and forth that's gone on between the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi and the Aam Aadmi Party government, the Delhi government today painted a grim picture of the COVID crisis in the capital. Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia has claimed that by the end of July, Delhi alone will see 5.5 lakh cases of corona positive. The big question then is the country entering what many have feared it already has, community transmission? Let's take a look at that as we prepare to ask questions to one of the country's leading doctors. AIIMS Director Dr. Randeep Guleria will take all your frequently asked questions, but first a story to set it in context. Take a look.
At a time when coronavirus cases in Delhi are rising steeply, inching towards the 30,000 mark, the Delhi government has sounded an alarm bell. Some could even say pressed the panic button.
12-13 दिन में दिल्ली में कोरोना के केसेस डबल हो जा रहे हैं। अभी जो डेटा प्रेजेंट किया गया उसमें ये बताया गया कि 30 जून तक दिल्ली में 15,000 बेड्स की आवश्यकता होगी। 15 जुलाई तक 33,000 बेड्स की आवश्यकता होगी और 31 जुलाई तक 80,000 बेड्स की आवश्यकता होगी।
Currently, there are about 9,000 beds earmarked for COVID patients in Delhi. It was on 7th of June that the Delhi Chief Minister announced that Delhi hospitals would only admit COVID patients from Delhi. A day later, on 8th of June, Delhi Lieutenant Governor Anil Baijal ordered authorities to ensure that treatment is not denied to any patient on grounds of not being a resident of Delhi.
एलजी साहब ने जो कल फैसला लिया कि दिल्ली के हॉस्पिटल्स को सबके लिए खोला जाए, उससे दिल्ली के जो लोग अब दिल्ली में रह रहे हैं उनके लिए बड़ा संकट पैदा हो गया है। हमने एसडीएमए की मीटिंग में ये मुद्दा उठाया था, एलजी साहब ने उस पर सहमति नहीं जताई। अब उसकी जिम्मेदारी कौन लेगा?
While every government establishment has been denying it, the Delhi government became the first state government to point towards community transmission of COVID having already taken place.
कल एम्स के डायरेक्टर ने खुद कहा था कि दिल्ली के कंटेनमेंट जोन्स में कम्युनिटी स्प्रेड है, परंतु क्योंकि टेक्निकल इशू है और इसके बारे में फैसला केंद्र सरकार ही कर सकती है, वही बता सकते हैं कि कम्युनिटी स्प्रेड है या नहीं। हम तो कैसे स्प्रेड है, हम तो ये कह सकते हैं भाई स्प्रेड है, दिल्ली में बढ़ रहा है, बहुत तेजी से बढ़ रहा है। अब उसका वर्ड जो कम्युनिटी स्प्रेड वर्ड यूज करने की अधिकार तो केंद्र सरकार के पास वही बता पाए।
But what is the status of COVID transmissions in the country? About 1/3 of the country's population inside various containment zones and hotspots may already have been infected with the novel coronavirus and may have recovered, reveal preliminary findings of the Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR's population-based Sero survey. Highly placed sources claim that the report, which is yet to be published, states that between 15 to 30% of the population has been exposed to the infection within containment zones and hotspots. According to sources, the findings of the ICMR Sero survey have already been shared with the Union Cabinet Secretary and the PMO.
Time and again, the ICMR has denied that India has still not reached the phase of community transmission. The serological survey was supposed to answer that question. And imagine having about 15 to 30% of the population living in hotspots, having been touched by the coronavirus and having had developed antibodies to it. What does it say about the concept of herd immunity? There's no denying the fact that the number of cases continue to rise steadily, whether or not we have reached the peak or we may or may not be in the community transmission phase. With Nasir Khan, Milan Sharma for India Today.
Let's raise the big questions then, and let's raise the frequently asked questions with Dr. Randeep Guleria, and Chief of All India Institute of Medical Sciences, one of the country's leading doctors, and also someone who is leading the effort of the government in terms of COVID-19. Appreciate your joining us, Dr. Guleria. My first question, is India in community transmission? That's the big question that's being asked today. Your view, sir.
So there are two ways of looking at it, and I think it's a semantic thing. If you look at the whole country data, and I have not seen the ICMR data because it's not out in public domain. But if we look at the data from the entire country, except for 8 or 8 cities, which are the hotspots, in all the other parts, the spread of infection is low, the number of cases is not that large, and in some areas, the cases are coming down. So as a country, to say that there is community spread happening would not be a right statement. So on the other hand, I do think that in the hotspots or in the containment area where the number of cases is increasing significantly, some degree of local transmission, which you could say community transmission in this area, is quite likely, and that is what is accounting for this increased number of cases. And what it really highlights is that we need to be very aggressive in these areas, and we need to have a strategy so that we break this community transmission and have very aggressive containment strategy in these areas.
So what you're saying in a Delhi, Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Chennai, the cities with large number of cases, in particular localized areas in those cities, in hotspots, there could be community transmission. Am I correct, Doctor?
That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Number two, sir, you've seen today Delhi government's projections. How realistic are they? Delhi government now says that by the end of July, there could be 5 lakh coronavirus cases in the national capital alone. Do you believe that that is possible, that it could be as high as that by the end of July?
So there's been a lot of modeling done, and this is also based on just rough modeling. I think there are a lot of variables in this which we need to keep in mind. And one is what you've already spread, that if there is a lot of spread happening at a community level, we may have a good amount of local herd immunity, and the number of cases will then start coming down. Secondly, we must also accept the fact that almost 90% of individuals have mild or asymptomatic illness. So although the number of cases may be more, the number that need hospitalization may not be that large. And if we develop a good strategy of admitting only the sick patients and allowing those who have mild illness or are asymptomatic to be monitored at home, we could use teleconsultation, we could give them some warning signs that they need to look out for, the strain on the hospitals could further be decreased. And thirdly, that I would like to say is that the other thing that we can look at is, as a strategy, there is a need, as was done in China, as was done in UK, as has been done in New York, we can look at what we could call field hospitals, which can be constructed very quickly, and to look at if there is increased need for providing hospital support to these patients.
You know, let me in a way sort of come to therefore a question that I had planned to ask as question number 5, but I'm asking it as question number 3. Is our health infrastructure, Dr. Guleria, struggling to cope up with the rising cases? We're seeing health workers who are being COVID affected, and we are seeing hospitals in several parts being strained.
So whenever you have a pandemic and you will have these issues which are coming up, one issue would be that you will have people, and this is not only in India but across the world, that a small percentage of your healthcare workers will get infected and will therefore go into isolation. And therefore each hospital has to develop a strategy of a backup team which can then maintain continuity in the hospital even if a percentage gets ill.
But as of today, is our health infrastructure crumbling under the weight of these increasing numbers?
No, I don't think so. We have a large number of patients, but we still have vacant beds. We still have ventilators available. At the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, currently we have 800 patients who are admitted who are COVID positive. But we still have ventilators available. We still have beds. And we are trying to look at a policy of a rapid turnover. Can we send these patients home early if they're stable, and can they then isolate themselves at home?
Right.
So different strategies have to be developed so that beds are available quickly and freed quickly, and at the same time we can take in more patients and save more lives.
My next question, did India open up too early? We are one of the few countries, if not the only one, which seems to have opened up, unlocked at a time when cases are rising. Have we opened up too early?
So this is a difficult question because it's looking at it from the medical point of view, the social point of view, and the economical point of view. I think you should also understand the fact that if we have a prolonged lockdown, it will have a huge impact as far as the daily wage workers are concerned, the rickshaw drivers, the auto people, the rediwalas. For them, the extended lockdown is going to have a huge effect, and for many of them, it's an issue of survival. At the same time, I do agree that an ideal situation would have been if we could have had the lockdown for some more time. So I think a balance has been struck, and we have partial opening of the lockdown. But at the same time, the responsibility of citizens has become much more because we have to understand that as we have an opening of the lockdown, it doesn't mean that COVID has gone away. It is still there. Cases are rising. So social distancing, wearing a mask, hand washing, and maintaining your distance while in office, while in shops, or while you're traveling becomes all the more important.
Let me ask you this. Are we therefore, Dr. Guleria, frankly, a long way from flattening the curve? When will this country peak? Can you give us any estimation as in your view when we could peak, and how far are we from flattening the curve in any manner?
So I think my own assessment is that our country is huge, and as a matter of fact, many countries in one, if you look at our population and distribution. So we will have different areas peaking at different times. For example, I think Bombay is already reaching that stage, and we may have subsequently a decline in number of cases. And then we may have other areas which may peak subsequently and come down. And we may have peaks occurring in other regions at a different point in time. So as a country, it's going to be difficult to say that when is the country on a whole going to show a decrease in number of cases. We'll have to look at it from a region to region wise. And there will be some areas which will have a decline, while others may continue to show some degree of rise depending upon how the dynamics are in that area.
Interestingly, you're giving some hope to Mumbaikars at least that maybe Mumbai may be reaching peak point at this moment. What percentage of COVID infections in India are asymptomatic, doctor, is the next question. Remember, some people are saying, doctor, that there is as high as 80% are asymptomatic. Others tell us 20-25%. Can you give us a sense of how many cases do you believe are asymptomatic?
Well, I think the number is quite large, maybe not as high as 80%, but maybe 50 to 60% of individuals will be asymptomatic, or they may have very mild symptoms which they don't think are related to COVID, and they don't get themselves tested and they become all right. I think that is going to form the large chunk of patients that we see. And in my mind, we will have better information as far as this is concerned once the serosurveillance data comes, because it will tell us how many people had the infection and had antibodies but were not tested or did not have symptoms. Right. And then we will be able to get an estimate as to what is the percentage of people who are actually having mild or asymptomatic.
So essentially what you're saying is that it could be as high as 50%. Therefore, should the ICMR revise the guidelines to allow testing of asymptomatic people?
So again, I feel that the guidelines the testing has to be done to answer some question or to actually focus on what we want to do. Testing asymptomatic people randomly is not going to really be of much use. We should test those people who have come in close contact. So if you have come in close contact with a person who is COVID positive, it is worthwhile to test you even if you have no symptoms, because you are a close contact and you may become positive and you may give the disease to others, and therefore that's important.
Yes.
But if we say that all who are asymptomatic as a random should we start testing them, that actually would be not a proper use of your limited resources, and I don't think you will be really answering any question by doing that type of testing.
I want to come then to the next question, Doctor, which is that there is a wide variation in testing policies across states. Why is that? Why have we been unable to have a uniform policy for testing? Telangana hasn't even given us tests since the middle of May. We've got Andhra, on the other hand, doing almost 10,000 tests per million. You've got Tamil Nadu doing aggressive testing, but you've got a Madhya Pradesh on the other hand, a Gujarat, which are testing much less. Why this wide variation?
So I think this is something that we need to keep in mind. ICMR, after a lot of deliberation, has come out with the guidelines based on what they feel should be the testing strategy at a given point in time. Every few days or every few weeks, those guidelines are updated. New criteria are added depending upon how we are in the pandemic. But health is also a state subject. So ultimately, it's for the states to have a look at their capacity.
But does that trouble you, sir? Does that trouble you that some states are just not testing enough, probably scared about the numbers that may come out? More you test, there may be more cases. Does that trouble you? Shouldn't India have a uniform policy state-wise?
Yes, I think so. We should have a uniform policy, and I think we should not be scared of the numbers. We should test, because test will only then by testing only we'll be able to know what is our next policy. How do we handle the situation? If you don't test and we are sort of trying to sort of hide the magnitude of the problem, it is not going to go away. We will still have to deal with it.
Right.
And therefore, I feel that there should be testing done more aggressively. The capacity of testing has increased tremendously in our country. It's going up every day. So we have the capacity to test. The will to test has also got to be there.
Let me come to the next question. This is an important one. Is the virus now spreading out of the cities and spreading to smaller towns? We are seeing, Dr. Guleria, in recent weeks, reports from, let's say, a district like Jalgaon in Maharashtra, where again the numbers are rising. We're also seeing spread into Bihar, Odisha, parts of the country which did not have large numbers may now get greater numbers. Is that a worry?
So that is possible, and that is likely to happen to some extent as people start traveling. Remember, now there is a lot of traveling which is happening from urban to rural India also, and to smaller cities. And therefore, it is likely that some people may carry the infection and go there. And that's why I said that you may have different peaks. They may not be that large, depending on the area. But you may have different peaks in different parts of the country, depending on when cases start, a cluster develops there. The good thing is that most of our smaller cities are not as crowded as the metropolitan cities. So containment will be much more easier in smaller cities and in rural part of the country as compared to the large metropolitan where there is a huge population density, and that becomes a big challenge.
Of course, many of these cities, of course, don't have the same quality of health infrastructure that the larger cities have. So that could be a worry. But my next question, will the onset of the monsoon have any impact on the virus? The monsoon is here. Will that have any impact at all on the intensity of the virus?
So it's difficult to say. I remember a few weeks ago, you said if summer comes, will the virus become less because of heat wave? We will have less cases. That did not happen. And so now with the monsoon coming, there is a possibility that because of more humidity and the temperature falling, the virus may survive for a longer time in the environment. But in the outdoor environment, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. And we will continue to have cases as we are having. My concern is with the monsoon, we will have a lot of vector-borne diseases. Dengue, malaria, chikungunya will also come. They also are diseases which have fever, body aches. And therefore, the symptoms can be similar. It will create a huge challenge to physicians in terms of differentiating these diseases from COVID-19.
Linked to that, is it safer to be outside than inside? Is it safer to be outside than in closed spaces? Do you believe that there are some reports which now seem to suggest that being outdoors is actually safer than being in a closed space?
That is true. So if you're in a closed space, there is a lot of, the virus can stay in the environment for a longer period of time because the temperature is much lower. And because of the closed space, the chance of getting infection from one person to the other is much higher. If you're in an open environment and in let's say in a park or a garden, and you are not in close contact with the individual, or you're wearing your mask, it's a much safer place to be.
Will adding 3-layered masks work better, sir? This is what the WHO has suggested. Do you believe that you need 3 layers of masks?
So the 3-layered mask basically is something which has a better filtering mechanism. So it depends on whom we are trying to advise should wear a mask. If you look at normal healthy people, then a simple cloth mask is good enough because it protects you in 2 ways. If everyone wears a mask, then if one person has the infection, the mask will not allow this infection to travel far because of the fact that you're wearing a mask, even if you're asymptomatic. If the other person is also wearing a cloth mask, he will also have a barrier so that this infection doesn't cross over to him, and both are protected, and both will therefore be able to prevent the chain of transmission.
Okay.
If you're going to an area, it could be like a hospital area, or you're working in an area, healthcare facility, I do agree that a 3-layered mask there may be of better utility than a cloth mask.
My next question, sir, is traveling in public transport safe? We are opening up air travel, we've opened up rail, buses are starting. How safe is it?
So it's a challenge. You will have to be very careful in terms of maintaining social distancing. I know it's going to be a huge problem if you start looking at the locals in Mumbai or the metro. One will have to regularly have a wear his mask and avoid touching a lot of surfaces. Use your hand sanitizer so that you keep your hands sanitized at all time, and you don't touch your face with your hands often. And I would suggest that we should stagger the timing so that the crowding in these public transport becomes less and one can maintain social distancing while traveling in these public transport.
Should senior citizens and children continue to stay at home for the next month?
I think so, especially the senior citizens. I think senior citizens or elderly with comorbidities should not go out. They should stay at home. They are the vulnerable population. And in my mind, the biggest thing that we need to do, I'm not that much bothered about the numbers that we have. Our population is large. We will have a huge number of cases of COVID-19. If you were to compare it with number of cases per million population, we will still be much lower. My concern is that we should have a low mortality. We should not have people dying of COVID-19. And to do that, we need to protect those who are the most vulnerable. And there are broadly two categories: the elderly, people who are in the older age group, and those who have comorbidities, hypertension, diabetes, heart problem, immunity being low. Those are the ones who need to be extra careful. And if they can stay at home, and they should do so, avoid going for non-essential activities outside. Take help from other people who can do those works. If you need something from the bank, ask someone to help you rather than going in a bank and standing in line. Things like that we should try and avoid and I think as a society we should support the elderly so that they are protected, and that will be something that will really help in the long run.
One final question. Have we got a milder Southeast Asian strain as compared to severe European strain? I know I've asked you this a couple of months ago when we started off this series, but do you believe now, 2 months later, can we say with any confidence that we've got a milder strain as compared to the severe European strain?
So we have a milder infection. There's no doubt about that. Our mortality is much low. The number of people requiring ventilator, even if you look at the entire national data, is only about 1%, which is much less than the number of people requiring ventilator support in Europe or in the US. Is it due to the milder strain? This is one theory that is there. Is it due to some inherent immunity that we have based on BCG vaccination? Or is it just that we are a younger population and therefore we are able to fight the virus better and therefore the mortality is low? Multiple theories, difficult to say which is.
Doctor, I just have 30 seconds. I just have 30 seconds to ask this. Is herd immunity the only way out? And how long do you think, how far away are we from achieving any kind of herd immunity?
So herd immunity may develop in hotspots early and therefore the cases there may decline. I think two things we need to focus on. One is herd immunity and hope that we get a vaccine early. Vaccination itself will also give a lot of immunity, and that will also help in decreasing the number of cases.
You don't want to give me a date, right? You don't want to give me now a time period. My daughter has just sent me a message. Please ask doctor, are we going to head into another lockdown?
So that's a difficult question. It depends how cases pan out. It's very difficult to predict the future. There are too many variables to be able to say that what the graph is going to look like. I'm hoping that we, over a period of time, in the hotspots, cases will start coming down in the next 1 to 2 months.
1 to 2 months. Okay. Doctor, we continue with our FAQs with you. They are most valuable, and thank you very much for joining me and giving our viewers a sense of where we stand at the moment. That's it on this special show. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.